Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Move, Crush, Count. This is a podcast that is sponsored by J&L Marketing. I'm your host, Scott Joseph. This is the show where we reveal secrets on how business leaders differentiate themselves from everyone else. We've got an expert in the house with us who I'm going to introduce here shortly. First, I want you to check out move.crush.count.com. I want you to please subscribe to the podcast so you get instant updates on all new episodes and a lot of different solutions to some of your biggest challenges. Also, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. The title of today's interview is Unlocking Your True Potential, How to Elevate Your Business and Your Life. My name is Scott Joseph. I'm talking with expert Daniel Gomez. And he's going to talk about how business leaders, what rules they need to follow when it comes to maximizing their true potential. Welcome, Daniel.
Hey, Scott, man. Thank you for having me. I'm pumped up. I've been excited. I had it on my calendar, man. I'm ready to rock and roll. I even ate some extra Wheaties today for you.
I'm pumped, buddy. You always bring a lot of energy. Listen, Daniel is a very successful business coach. He coaches executives. He's a corporate trainer. You're an award-winning motivational speaker, keynote speaker. You're traveling, doing a bunch of different events all around the world. So you've got 2 decades worth of experience when it comes to leadership development. And correct me if I'm wrong on all this stuff, all right? Team building, sales training, customer service, coaching, right? You're an internationally best-selling author of You Were Born to Fly. And you wrote that book to inspire people, to give people basically high performance habits and the confidence needed so they could be leaders of their own destiny. And so I think you're highly qualified. We're excited to have you on here. You've graciously agreed to kind of share your knowledge, your experiences here, and we appreciate that. Thank you. Let's jump right in.
Man, I'm excited. Well, you know what? I got a copy of my book right here, right? Because we were all born to fly. We were born for greatness. And when you realize you were born for success, there's nothing in your mind that you cannot do. And right, the confidence, you cannot win without confidence. Scott, you tell me a basketball team, NBA team, NFL team that won without confidence. You can't win without confidence in sports. In the same way, you definitely can't win without confidence in business. And so many of us, we lose our confidence and we never regain it the way we should sometimes in business. And it keeps us from trying new adventures, take new risk. And that's where a lot of business owners fail, because they fail one time. And the reality is more than 50% never try something new again that's going to stretch them to the new ability.
Well, I want to touch on that confidence. I want to come back to that. First, I want people to understand who you are. I want you to give us a little bit of your history and your background, where your experience and stuff came from, a little bit of your story. So our audience who may not know you, they know you after the show. But it's important because what I want these business leaders, when this show is over, I want them to walk away with 3 rules that they got to follow. All right, in order to really tap into or unlock, like you like to say, unlock that untapped potential. And so first, let's jump in and just who is Daniel Gomez? How did it all happen for you? Where did it start? And we'll take it from there.
Well, Daniel Gomez is a gentle lion, right? I'm bold when I need to be. I'm confident when I need to be. But I say that because there was a time in my life where I was arrogant, and 4 years ago, my life changed. Like you mentioned, I was in the automotive industry for 20 years, made a lot of money, made a lot of people a lot of money, but I didn't realize how far I had gotten away from who Daniel Gomez was. And when my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, it really came back and centered me, because it didn't matter how much money I had in the bank, Scott. Our house was paid off, the title that I had, it wasn't going to save her. And I was put in a situation where I had to either honor my career or honor my wife, who I had been married to for over 20 years. And of course, it really humbled me. I'll be honest with you, it humbled me, and it made me reassess how I had led my organization, led my family, and much less led myself. Because I realized that I needed to change a lot of things in my life, but I didn't realize this, how much I had to change. I didn't realize how much junk I had inside of me. So Daniel,
what do you mean by that? Go into that for a little bit.
Yeah, just the junk, right? I think, as we grow in prominence, or we grow in stature or success, it can get to your head sometimes. And I was one of those leaders that, even though I took care of my team at work phenomenally, whenever we got a spiff, we would spiff everybody. Whenever somebody, your vendors come and they buy Christmas gifts, they give them out to everybody. But I say that because I had always thought I was doing good, but in reality, I had so much junk of selfishness, unforgiveness within myself. I carried shame and guilt. And it's just, it had led up for many, I think as men, for me, I never dealt with a lot of shame and guilt that I had when I was younger in my 20s. And, then now I'm 38, 40. I get older and I'm running these organizations. And it's like, it catches up to you. As men, we swipe things, right? We sweep it under the rug and we don't deal with some of those issues that come back and, right? We think it's going to go away, but it doesn't. So all that junk of just shame and guilt really, I cried a lot. I'll be honest with you. I cried because even though I had a very successful business that we ran at home, we were very profitable, but my kids and my wife didn't want a business owner at home. They wanted a dad. They wanted a husband. And I had to carry that shame and guilt right? I felt like I was a failure because I thought my kids just wanted the latest iPhone. I thought they just wanted the Jeep, but sometimes they just wanted their own man. And it really had me self-assess who I had become. And when I looked in the mirror one day, when the inventory was gone, 100 employees was gone, nobody was going out with us because my wife had a double mastectomy. We were home for 6 months. I'll tell you what, it gets lonely, and you just got you and the man in the mirror. And that's where the healing process started for me. And the best way for me to heal was just to share my story and talk to people. And I realized as I was doing this, there was many business owners out there that were struggling with what I had gone through. There was many executives that went up the corporate ladder, but they were on the top rung of success. But guess what? They went up the wrong rung. And now they're trying to find that fulfillment, but it's in their eyes, it's too late. And I'll say it's not too late because I was 44 years old when I resigned from a very prominent position, making a lot of money. And I chose to honor my wife and honor my family. And by God's grace, I'm able to come back now and just be a person who values people and loves to give and just add help wherever I can. Sometimes it's just, and it's not always, it doesn't always have to be paid. And what I mean by that is somebody calls me and they need prayer and something, we end up talking for an hour. It's like, I believe in giving back in a certain ways also. So that's just the junk that I'm referring to.
Yeah. When you say all this, a couple things come to my mind. First, it always amazes me how God puts challenges, what we think are really big challenges in our lives, when really a lot of times those challenges are exactly what we need to move forward. And I think you're a good example of that. By the way, he's not kidding when he says he reaches out and offers prayers. He has sent me voicemail prayers no less than at least 6-7 times since I've met you about a year now. Always well appreciated and always very timely, by the way. Very, very timely. So I appreciate that. But the second thing that comes to my mind is when I hear you talk about selfishness, a lot of times when we hear that word, we think about, selfishness, meaning, I want most of the profit. I want most of the pay. We think about material things, right? I'm selfish in that sense, but business leaders, we're very guilty when it comes to being selfish in the sense of really about our time. Right. And you're sitting here, what did your kids and your family really want most from you? And that's what I'm hearing. It wasn't all the material things. It's the time. And so I can't wait to dive in and hear how you untapped your own potential and what advice you give, or what these business rules that people must follow in order to unlock that. So let's start right off. What would you say would be the first rule that you would advise business leaders when it comes to unlocking their true potential?
Well, I would say this is that you really have to reflect. You have to reflect on your life. You have to reflect on your accomplishments. And a good example of that is, for me, last year in 2020, we were having a phenomenal year. Just came back from speaking internationally, was in Qatar, high cloud nine, freak accident. The next 2 days, I went for a jog and boom, I almost broke my leg. I almost broke my foot. Ran into a trash can, couldn't walk for 3 months. And it wasn't the end of the year that I wanted for 2020. I was in my feelings and I really just got depressed for about a week or two. And all of a sudden, I just had this app that I had on my phone, and you put pictures in it called Quick or Quicks. And I started loading up these pictures and making videos out of pictures. And God showed me, look at how much you've done, son. Look at how much you've done. And see, so many times as men, we strive to go ahead. We strive. Like we're trying to prove something to somebody. We're trying to prove something to somebody. And then the reality is you don't have to prove anything to anybody. But as I was making these videos with these little pictures, I was like, Daniel Gomez Inspires has a speaking academy. Like, I didn't even celebrate it. I didn't have time to savor it and really enjoy the steak. And as I was making this video, Scott, I remember just crying on the couch. It was it's about a year ago exactly. And I looked at all the wins I had in 2020. And God says, son, you failed to realize that you've had more wins in 2020 in 10 months than most people have had in a whole year in their lifetime. So I think most leaders really, they don't savor their victory. They don't celebrate themselves. And I say, you got to reflect. That's rule number one, reflect back. Reflect back on the month, reflect back on the quarter, reflect back on the year. And when you really take time to reflect it and receive it, that's when more gratitude enters your heart. And that's when, right? Because the key to promotion, the key to increase is gratitude. Because think about this. If we have a son or daughter and we give them a nice car just to say, and they don't take care of it, we're not going to go buy them a nicer one because they didn't appreciate it. So how many times are we given a great month in business or something great and we overlook it? What's next? We need to stop saying what's next and look back and say, thank you for this. Thank you for this victory that I have. Thank you for an amazing month. Thank you for my amazing employees. And I think we don't really reflect back enough. So I'll say rule number one is definitely to reflect back.
What happens if we break that rule? What are some of the consequences that you see out there?
Well, it's ingratitude. It's ingratitude. Think about that. Ingratitude is you harm yourself because what you're really saying is, I don't appreciate what I've been given. So if you don't appreciate what's been given, if you take it for granted, we know that it's a law, right? Whatever you take for granted, it's going to go away sooner or later. And then we start to self-sabotage ourselves and we wonder, why did this happen? Well, it didn't just happen. It's just the fact that the ingratitude, you didn't appreciate it. You took it for granted and it's taken away. You somebody who, right? If you don't respect money, money's not going to stick around. So the same way, it's going to go to somebody who appreciates it, who can really say, you know what, I can use this for the good of humanity, who has an understanding of what money really is. It's the same thing. So you really have to be grateful. I think that's a lesson is when you're grateful, you realize, Scott, that you don't have to keep striving. And I think so many times as men and even women nowadays, right? It doesn't matter. There's no gender. We're trying to prove something to somebody that you have nothing to prove to. Especially, this is a thing though. You know who you're trying to prove it to? Yourself, when there's no reason to prove it to yourself. Because you're already.
Go ahead.
We're already everything. Wait, everything we need is already inside of us.
Yeah. I just sit here and think, as I reflect on what you're saying, I think to myself, because I've actually, not intentionally, I've pulled up something. I wanted to see what pictures I had on Facebook or whatever that were tagged to me. And then I, went down that rabbit hole of like starting to look at all the pictures. All right. And there's tons of them because, you share a lot on social and I realized, wow, I've had a lot more fun, and been involved in a lot of things. Whereas I look back on the last year, 2, 3, whatever, and I make the comments, man, that year flew by. I didn't accomplish, or I didn't do nearly what I wanted to do. I didn't live it. I wasn't present. I wasn't all these things. And when you don't reflect on it, you run the risk of things becoming very mundane. And like you said, all of a sudden you start taking things for granted, and things that used to excite you no longer do. And it can be easy to kind of go into this, I don't want to use depressed, but like you lose a motivation, so to speak. Is that fair to say? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, I think is what happens is what I've seen many times for many of these executives is they start to compare themselves, right? You're so busy looking to this left and looking to the right, and instead of saying like, shit, look at what I've done. Like, wow, like, thank you. And the thing is, when you do that, right, when you start not really reflecting, you start comparing yourself. And then that's where you become more, how can I say, more frustrated, because now you're comparing yourself to this dealership that did more, to this business owner that did this, or these people are in Hawaii or whatever. No, don't do that to yourself, because comparison kills your dreams. Comparison kills your destiny, because no matter what, when you start comparing yourself, nothing's going to be good enough. And this is one thing that I had to go through myself as my shift came in my life, and I really tapped into my potential. Is Daniel's path is Daniel's path. Scott's path is Scott's path. And that would be rule number 2, right? That your path is your path. Your path is not going to look like anybody else's path. I think back of one thing that I love about Tyler Perry's book, is he talks about, he went to Hollywood, could have signed the biggest agreement. He didn't, because they wanted to do it hit their way. And he knew it wasn't right, even though it was millions and millions of dollars. And then when his time finally came, he was upset. He felt like giving up. And God says, you know what? I had been hiding you because I wanted you to do it my way. And look at him now. Now he makes more money than Hollywood, pretty much. Yeah. If you think about it. So there's the thing that we fail to see sometimes as men is there's a season of preparation. There's a season of growth. There's a season that we have to be fortified. And most human beings, they want the reward without the fortification. If you can't handle the blessing, if you can't handle the next level of business, it's not going to come until you're ready to handle it with your character, with your strength. And most people just want the fruit, but they never develop the root.
I love that. You never get bad fruit from good roots. So
yeah.
all right. So let me ask you this. So I'm sitting here. Every successful business leader looks like they have the best life in the world on social media, because that's all. No one posts their crap on there, right? It's all the good stuff. And so, but my gut tells me that a lot of people, going back to your first rule there, a lot of people break that rule. All right. So I got 2 questions for you. One, how do you fix it if you've already been breaking that rule? But then 2, and I think the more important one, how do you stay on the straight and narrow with this one? Like, what are the things you can do moving forward so you don't keep repeating this mistake?
Well, I would say on the reflection part, just really see how much you've done, right? I think so many times when you wake up, you're alive, you've already won. My dad always had a saying, any day above ground, we've already won. I think about all the stuff we went through these past 2 years with COVID, how many people have lost, whether it was pertaining to that or not. Either way, we lost people. So really just wake up with that sense of, wow, I'm alive. I have an opportunity to add value to somebody else. Yeah. And really just enjoy the day. Today is a present. Enjoy it. And really ask yourself this question: what can I do to add value to other people? And when you go with that intention of really trying to help from I don't want to say a servant's heart, because I think servant is misleading, because I think sometimes people use the word servant and they want to give everything away. So that's why I try to stay away from that. But when you go to add value to people, because this is a reality, the marketplace is going to pay you for the value you deliver to it. The marketplace is going to pay you for the value you deliver to it. So when you reflect on your wins, you realize this, like you just said, crap, I'm more valuable than I realized. Look at all these wins I had. That gives you the competency, that gives you the confidence to say, I am valuable. And when you have that celebration from the reflection that you just did, it's just like there's nothing that you can't do. You realize that regardless of how bad or good the day may be that particular day, overall, guess what? I have a pretty good life. And even if I help one person a day, I did my job for the day.
Yeah. So repeat rule number 2. You said about knowing the path. Go into that a little bit for us.
Yes. Well, I think so many times we go down the path of life and we wish we were ahead of somebody else, or we compare ourselves. Man, this person, you're happy because you bought a brand new car. I bought a brand new Camaro. My neighbor bought a brand new Lamborghini. Man, I'm losing, right? And it's like, but you don't know the struggle. You don't realize he's been doing it for 20 years. You've only been doing it for 4 years. Yeah. And you don't realize that your trajectory, right? You're shooting up like this, and this person is shooting up, right? Their angle is longer, but they've been doing it for 15 years. And I had to come to that realization because to be honest with you, I've been doing what I'm doing full time for 4 years now. And I look at it and I'm like, man, I want to be ahead more.
That's not a long time.
No, it's not.
Hey, let me just say this with you, okay? Because you come from your foundation comes from auto, right? We've got a lot of listeners that come from that, and believe it or not, this is not an automotive podcast. However, we have automotive guests on here, and I think it's an industry that so many industries can learn from, and as well as the auto industry can learn a lot from others. But there's another person in your space, right, that I think a lot of people think over the last 5, maybe 8 years kind of exploded on the scene, and that's Grant Cardone, right? And so it would be easy for you to sit there and say, well, I've been doing this for 4 years. That's not much less than Grant. But what people, just to the exact point you just made, Grant's been doing this and no one knew of him for 20 to 30 years before he got to this mark.
Yeah, I remember watching him on VHS cassettes at our back in right. Actually right before 9/11. He had his frizzy hair and he was like, but I was like, but I knew him because he was in the car. He was a car dog. He was in the car and he was a trainer. But yeah. You're right. And we think that they just appear out of the blue and they don't. And you're 100% right on that, Scott.
Yeah. There was a time I never competed with him only because we weren't in the same, we're selling 2 dealers at the time, but I got to tell you, there was a time we were much larger than him. He blew by us like we're going backwards. I will tell you, I look at him and it motivates us. It motivates me to sit there and say, all right, if he can do this, why can't we? But if I sat there, to your point, and really tore myself up over it, instead of looking at what has been accomplished and start looking at what has not, it's easy to go down a rabbit hole or down into a downward spiral of stuff. Either A, no matter what you accomplish, you'll never be happy, which that's not fun. Or 2, when you start going down that path and not feeling like you're successful or whatever, you tend to become less successful.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like I said, we all bring a gift. You have a gift. I have a gift. Grant has it. We all have our own gift. That's and right. When you operate in your own gift, you realize that you don't have to compare yourself to anybody because there's enough room. Your gift will make room for you. Your gift will make room for you. And my gift, right? A lot of people don't like my message, which is, hey, I'm okay with that, but I'm Daniel Gomez and I've been very successful. I've came out, to me, I think 4 years, I've grown more than people have grown in a decade or longer because I'm real. I'm not going to be somebody that I don't want to be in. But I'll tell you, the first year I was kind of trying to fit in, see where did I fit in? I didn't even know, to be honest with you. But now I say no to a lot of things before I would say yes to.
And a lot of times you don't know where you're fit. You don't necessarily always, the product or service you want to provide initially, once you get out and start doing things, can change, right? All of a sudden you start getting feedback from clients and customers or from your audience, and you start recognizing people want this, not necessarily this, right? This is more inspiring. This is more motivating, or people tend to respond better to this. And so that, I'm sure that had something to do with shaping where you're at now.
Yeah, exactly. So when I came out as a speaker, I had an idea, but I didn't really know, but I knew I was raw as a speaker. I needed help, but I knew that I could sell. So what did I do? I knew automotive. I put together a sales training manual, and right off the back, I started doing sales training at automotive dealerships and got in with some big names here in South Texas. And it was good, but my heart wasn't in it, right? It wasn't that wasn't in me. And then as my speaking
at what point, so that's not your path, fair to say?
Sales training is, but not so much specializing in automotive. I think when coming out, I thought that maybe automotive was going to be my lane, like Grant Cardone to say. But
where was the aha? My question is, where was the aha moment? What happened? What was that aha moment where you're like, you know what? This isn't fulfilling me. I need to go on to bigger and better things?
I think when my big break came, when I trained the United States Air Force, when I trained 300, right, NCO officers of the Air Force here at the academy, and just to see grown men and grown women cry. If you think about it, military, the military, whether you're military or any branch, or even police officers, we're taught to be tough. We're taught not to show our emotions. And after I spoke that day on leadership, and just really them, to see so many soldiers, officers crying, I was like, wow, like I have something to bring to these people. Even though I didn't talk about God, I talked about his principles. And if you would have seen how many soldiers were just there in tears and just said, thank you. That's when I said, this is bigger than, not that training in sales not that it wasn't valuable. It is valuable because I still have a valuable client in that area, but I believed it, right? And most of us, the belief is what kills us. We lack the belief that there's another level inside of us. We lack the belief that we can sell 1,000 cars. We lack the belief that I can own 4 dealerships. We lack the belief to be like, you know what, I can be something great. Because if you don't believe it, it's not going to happen. And at that moment, I looked at the audience and I was like, I started believing that Daniel Gomez brought something to the table. Back then, my brand wasn't Daniel Gomez Inspires. I was just Daniel Gomez. But I said, if I can impact these soldiers, these officers, what can I not do with God by my side? And that's when it was just an amazing feeling when people come and hug you. And I was like, wow. And I was hooked on speaking. And then from speaking, when COVID happened, we launched our podcast, which you were an amazing guest on the Daniel Gomez Inspired show. And it just, our brand blew from there. And you're right. So many times we start business, but if you don't, right, the word pivot, I don't like pivot because so many times we pivot with the wrong mindset. If you pivot with the old identity that you are, you're still going to fail because you're not being open-minded to what's new out there. So I lost $50,000 in paid speaking gigs that first March 16th. I lost $50,000. So I could either feel sorry for myself. Okay, what am I going to do? And God said, start Speaking Academy. Even though I had no idea how to do it, I said, I can do this. So I learned, and guess what? I thought everybody was getting paid to speak, and little did I know that most speakers were failing after the first 6 years, right? The first 6 months to a year. And I was over here making 6 figures, not because of what I did, but you know what? I credited it to the automotive industry. As much as I hated it, you and I both know this. You open a month, you close a month. You open a month, you close a month. You open a month, you close a month. So in my mind, I was already conditioned. Okay, open a month, close a month. Open the month, close a month. Open the books, close the books. Speaking gig, close it, right? But that was just my mentality, and it carried me to where I am today. So use what you got. Most leaders, we get comfortable in our success. And this would be rule number 3, is don't get comfortable in your success. Because when you get comfortable in your success, you stop doing the little things that got you to where you're at. But you know, the most important thing is you stop taking risk. You stop betting on yourself the way you bet on yourself before. You stop believing in yourself the way you believed before, because now you've had more success than ever. And then some of the people that I coach, they go into that protection mode where they want to hoard what they've had, what they've gotten. And then that's when you know this, if you're not increasing, you're disintegrating. Let me say that again. If you're not increasing, you're disintegrating. If you're not progressing, you're regressing. You're going backwards. And Scott, I say this because I just went through this season. I came back from Miami, and I was up there with Bobby Castro, and we're up there. Man, I was up there with Floyd Mayweather on stage. I was like, dude, like, what's up? You look at yachts.
You know, if you haven't heard Floyd, a lot of us hear him talk, or a lot of us see him as a boxing personality. He's very sharp in business. And I don't think, you know, until he's now retired and all of a sudden now he's speaking about business, and you're being introduced to a lot of the things that he's actually been doing behind the scenes during his boxing career. Very sharp. I've heard him speak a couple different times, and I was extremely impressed with him. So yeah, I love it. You're surrounding yourself, but go on with this, because I have a feeling I know where you're going with it. I love it.
Yeah. So that I met people that were like on fire, and then we got on this yacht, and I'm in Miami Bay, I think is what it was called. And you're seeing these houses, and I'm like, man, this is the houses that I see on this video I want. And then you see other yachts, and then you see boats that are, man, I'm a boater, so I'm like, man, this is speaking to me. And I looked over and I told a friend of mine, I said, dude, I'm gonna get a house like that. But I meant it. I didn't say it just to say, I said, dude, I'm gonna have a house, a pool like that. I took a picture of it. That's my house.
Yeah.
And I came back and I met two younger guys in me, and I just saw the success that we're having. And I'm thinking, like, Daniel, you got some money in the bank and you got comfortable. You got fat. You're the fat calf now, right? You just, and this is the thing though, is the way you do something is the way you do everything. So as I flew back, we were on my friend's jet. And as I flew back, I was like, I'm playing small. I need to play bigger. I need to get hungry. And I said, well, I never got over almost breaking my foot. I still had a mental block there. I said, I need a trainer. I need a coach. Because I knew in my heart, I knew it because I would feel it, right? You feel when your clothes doesn't feel right. I said, if I'm taking shortcuts in my workouts, I'm taking shortcuts in business. I just don't see it. I don't need a coach. I'm stuck, but I'm not stuck in business. I'm stuck in my comfort zone. But I didn't realize how bad it was. I didn't realize how comfortable it was. And we've been there, right? Our pants don't feel good, feel right. And we tolerate it and we make excuses. And I said, Daniel, it's time to stop reasoning with yourself. I hired Reggie, come to my house 3 times a week. I almost vomited the first 2 times, but he pushed me and he put the fire back in me. And I said, man, I feel like the old Daniel Gomez. And then as I noticed our numbers started going up, more business, more phone calls, more business, more phone calls. And the thing is the more we earn, the more we get to give and bless other people too. But I say this, look yourself in the mirror right now, ladies and gentlemen. Where in your life are you comfortable? Because the way you do something is the way you do everything. And if you're not taking care of your health, if you're not taking care of your body, that means you're being lazy in other areas of your business. And like I said a couple of minutes ago, if you're not progressing, if you're not increasing, you're disintegrating, you're decaying because you got comfortable in your success. There's always another level. The thing is, you had to tap into that that potential that's hidden inside of you and realize that sometimes it's bigger than you. There's somebody out there that needs your help. Somebody out there's drowning and you're their life jacket. And I had to realize, Scott, that was I going to be selfish in my own success or was I going to continue reaching out and doing more? And I got a new fire in me, man. I'm excited. I'm getting fit. You know, you start seeing the cuts, the veins. This is the new shirt I bought just for your show. And it's like,
take your shirt off, Daniel. Show us. Take that.
Woo, baby. but I feel great. I mean, it's just, I just feel it. I feel great. And your health is your wealth. I mean, that's rule number 1 is your health is your wealth. And I needed a push. And there comes a point where we all need a push. And I needed to love
that. Wait, don't you love that when you get around people that wake you up and they're probably not even doing it intentionally. You're sitting there with your eyes open, paying attention. And you're like, I'm just hearing you say, I'm not dreaming big enough. I'm not thinking big enough. And let me tell you, I have watched people, extremely successful people, say the exact same thing. And so at some point we all hit comfort zones. And I think initially we have comfort zones out of fear, these limiting beliefs you talked about, thinking maybe I'm going to stay where I'm at because I don't know if I can get here, here. But then maybe throughout time, we become successful, that comfort zone expands, but then we have a new comfort zone, right? And you touched on that as well. Then all of a sudden we're afraid to expand it because we don't want to lose what we have. Because we didn't think we were going to get there, right? And we don't want to lose that. So I'm going to stay right here, in this area right here. And so I love, I mean, how important are the relationships? How important is the circle of influence that, your circle of influence, the people you hang around with, the people that influence and motivate you?
Well, this is the thing is when I started my career, right, I left the automotive industry and, I was making about on consistency, I was averaging about $200,000 a year. And I say that because I looked at the people I associated with when I was running dealerships. And now I look at the fact that, this person, I probably made more money than all of them or about the same, but you're within 20% of the 5 people you associate with. And I said, well, I'm really going to take this speaking seriously. I need it. Not that they're bad people, but they're not going to get me where I need to go. So there was a part of that transition that I was lonely. I cried. I was frustrated. I had a quote that says, you're not a real entrepreneur till you're 99.9% sure that you're going to give up. You're crying in the bathroom. Because that was me. I was going to go back to the automotive industry because I was comfortable there.
Yeah.
Right? I was crying. I was going to give up. I was 99.9% sure I was going to give in, but I didn't. And then I finally went to the other side of that, I started hanging around with James Dentley, multimillionaire, Bill Walsh, multimillionaire. Started hanging out with Michael D. Butler, almost a millionaire. Started hanging out with these people that, like, wow, right? And then
your think
yes,
changes.
My thinking changed. And then next thing you know, Clubhouse comes around and a new influence comes in, new people like yourself. I met you there.
That's where we met. Yeah.
Yes. And then I go to your event and it's like, man, you read you meet genuine people and you just start gravitating towards those people that are where you want to go. And just being around them, the conversations are totally different here than they were here. Yeah. And if you don't think proximity is everything, it is. Usually here on the bottom, right, on the lower working class, and I don't say that in a bad way, people are complaining, they're gossiping. Here, it's like, hey, what are we going to do next? What's the next big win? What's your next, right? It's the conversation's different. Here, like, right. One thing I learned is with multimillionaires, you're not talking about how much are you getting paid an hour. It's like, shit, no, what's your net worth? Conversation's totally different over here. You know, we're celebrating, man, I got $1 a raise, man, screw that. Guess what? They changed my permission, my paid commission. I got an extra 0.5%. What about your net worth? So your mind thinks, and guess what? When you shift your thinking and you start thinking like multimillionaires, and guess what? You start becoming one, Scott. And then your conversation's different, and then you start attracting bigger opportunities, bigger situations, and bigger people like yourself that are real. I think the biggest lie that we've been told is that rich people are greedy, and they're not. Rich people is Scott Joseph, who invited me into his home, into his event, and embraced me. That's the lie that people keep telling themselves, Scott.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. You know, you brought up confidence earlier, and we've kind of touched on limiting beliefs and empowering beliefs. I think a lot of people understand, I hope they understand the damage that can be done by limiting beliefs, you know. But confidence and empowering beliefs, they kind of overlap. What do you say to the person that's trying to get to that next level, but deep down, maybe they lack the confidence? You know, you hear fake it till you make it, but what's your advice? What's your opinion on how to overcome that or get the confidence you need to take it to the next level?
Well, you got to buy my book. I talk about confidence in here. No, but in my book, I talk about this. I talk about the rule of 151. Marshall Hawk, doctor, psychiatrist, she taught 151. And I shared it in my book because she says in there, it takes 151 times for someone to hear something before they really start to believe it. Think about that. If someone's never been told that they're good enough, when you tell them that, when you try to affirm them in a position at your dealership or at your organization, they don't really hear you. It's not until 151 times that they say, wow, this must be true. So the answer to that, what you said, is find some affirmations of where you want to go. And one of them that I always teach is I am confidence. Not that I am confident, but I am confidence. And the moment you start to tell yourself that affirmation, look in the mirror every single morning. And repetition is the answer, Scott, to what you just said. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Because that's the way we learn. Once you're 26 years old, your brain stops growing. You're who you are, unless trauma, hypnosis, or repetition is the only way you're going to change that. You have to cognitively reframe your mind the same way they do it to Navy SEALs. How can a Navy SEAL run towards a bullet and love it and be charged and not be scared? Because they had a cognitive reframing. That's the same thing that you need to do. And the way you do that is through repetition. And you got to tell yourself, I am confidence. I am successful. Find some affirmations that speak to the future that you want. For example, myself. Sometimes I would go in these rooms and I didn't feel that I was good enough. Sometimes I felt like, man, like Scott Joseph, wow, he's pretty awesome. He's an amazing guy. But I would say, this is what I would tell myself. I belong with the elite. You know what? I belong with the elite. I am good enough. You know what? I bring something to the table. And the more I told myself that, the more I believed in it, and the more, guess what? I got in bigger rooms. And the second thing I would say is talking about the association, right? I always say, right, proximity. Sometimes people, okay, who's in your playground? Who's playing on your swings? Who's playing on your merry-go-round? Who's playing on your seesaw? Are these people that you're hanging around with on a daily basis, are they adding value to you, or are they sucking the life out of you? So I would say, get your 5 fingers. There's always one person that's always condescending. There's always one person that talks down to your dreams. Push them to the outer circle. Because until you make room for new in your life,
is that person always on this finger?
Well, it could be on this finger too. Right? So really, who's in your playground? And assess that. Because if you're trying to make something of yourself, like for instance, talking about automotive, I was at this dealership and there's one guy making a lot of money, doing good, but he was always floundering. I said, man, who are you hanging around with? A friend of his who always wanted to go out and party and drink during the week. Hung over on Tuesdays, hung over on Wednesdays. I said, dude, how much money are you spending? He goes, I don't know, maybe $200 a night. And you're making $10,000 a month and you're squandering it?
Yeah.
I said, dude, you want to get better? You want to stop arguing with your old lady? He goes, yeah. Push that friend out to the outer circle. It was hard for him, but he did. And guess what? He just bought his new house. Now he has $10,000 in the bank, never had it in the bank, but it's changing the daily things that we're doing. And then what I would say to that is listen to Scott Joseph's podcasts. What are you listening to every day? Your audio intake, right? Your input determines your output. So many times we focus on the result, and that's the wrong thing we should do. Don't focus on the result. What's the root of it? What the heck's causing it? What's the input? If you're listening to heavy metal Pantera music and you got an anger issue, you think maybe the music you're listening to in the morning maybe has something to do with it? If you're listening to old political, no disgrace, but I'm just going to use what comes to mind, Rush Limbaugh, politics and negativity every day, and your life's negative, well, maybe you need to stop listening to that crap and listen to something that's going to add value to you, like a podcast or a book, an audio book.
Your brain has only so much capacity. And so you can either choose to fill it with limited negative things or very positive things. I equate it, it's a horrible analogy, but I equate it to like a milk jug or a gallon of water. You know, when you're pouring out that gallon of water, you got that gulping sound, right? That gulping sound's from air trying to get in while the water is trying to escape out. The more positive you put in, it can't get in there until the negative comes out and vice versa, right? The more negative put in leaves less room for the positive. Your brain is no different than that jug of water or the jug of milk. You get to choose what you put in there, and that's a choice. And I just wish people, I love what you said. It can be a book, it can be a podcast, it can be whatever. You've got a great podcast yourself. You need to plug your own while you're on here real quick.
Well, you got to go to the Daniel Gomez Inspire show. And, Scott was on there. Scott was an amazing guest, but you got to be listening to things that are adding value to you. And the last thing is that we don't realize this. And you, maybe you do because you're in marketing. Businesses spend millions and millions of dollars in marketing. Why? Because we're visual beings. Write that down right now. I'm a visual being. We're all visual beings. We take in think about this, over 1 million. Look it up if you don't believe me. Over 1 million optics a second. Our eyes take in over 1 million optics a second. Don't you think that's a little bit, right? It kind of affects our subconscious mind. So what are you watching every single day? Stop watching the news. Stop binge watching on Netflix. Stop binge watching on movies, right? And if you're going to be on YouTube, look at something that's going to add value to you, not junk.
And well, you know what you just said there too. Not everything we watch is necessarily negative, right? But that TV show that you love for its entertainment value, that's just a numbing device so you can escape whatever you're trying to avoid. But it's not adding value to you. It's not helping you grow as a person. And so you got to be careful about that. You know, when I get into my own ruts, I'm watching more television than I should. I'm exercising less, right? I'm eating worse. All the things, all this stuff matters. And I just, whether it's diet, exercise, how you feed your brain, who you associate yourself with, all it's like baking a cake. It's all these are all ingredients. And you got to find the right recipe and how they work them all together, right? To come up with the masterpiece, to have this thing taste as good as it can be. And that's what you're talking about. You're talking about reaching your true potential. If we want this cake to reach its true potential, we got to have the right ingredients and we got to have the right recipe with these ingredients to make it all work.
Yeah. And this is one thing though. All this, Scott, is tied to our habits. And what is our habits tied to? Our self-image. If we have a low self-image, a low self-esteem, we're never going to create the high quality habits. We're never going to tap into that true potential that we should. So to get the result that we're talking about, you really got to start building your self-confidence, build your self-esteem in yourself, and start seeing yourself from a new light. Release your past failures, release your past mistakes. I've met so many successful business owners that are monetarily successful, but they're so empty inside because they're so insecure. And many times I think you've seen them, just as these insecurities come up, right? We stop treating our employees the right way. But when you really just your self-image is built up to a place where it's like, I'm comfortable in who I am. I don't have any reason not to be. Your habit starts to change. And when you love yourself enough to raise your self-esteem, that's where the true transformation is, where you're going to start doing the things that we're talking about, listening to your podcast and watching something different, reading books, because your self-image has to, right? Your self-image is just your habits are just a reflection of your self-image. If you have a poor self-image, you're not going to create the habits that you need to become that successful businessman, that successful businesswoman that you were born to be.
And if you're running a business and you're sitting out there thinking, all right, this is all great, this helps me personally, but I'm here listening to this podcast because I want to grow my business. Listen, the better you are as a leader, the better your culture is going to be, the higher quality employee you're going to attract, right? Yes. And retain. All right. And so all of that stuff, it all goes together. It's part of that recipe. I want to get your opinion on something.
Well, you said something I want to say, right?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
That person that made that comment, right? Well, you know what? One thing that I do is I see this so many times. Business owners, they never developed a business mindset. They want to be successful business owners. And guess what? They still think like a damn employee. Stop thinking like an employee. I do this training called Kill the Employee Mindset. And it surprises me how many people, they don't let go of that mindset of trading dollars for hours, when instead of working on the results, when you start getting paid for your results, when you really start to hire a coach, a business coach that's really going to help you shift from an employee to a business owner, and not just an entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur gets stuck here and all they want to do is be at Starbucks and be on Facebook. That's not being that's an entrepreneur's, a successful business owner. It takes a different mindset. And the question that I have to that person that might make that comment listening to this podcast is this, Scott: what's your relationship with money? Until you start to embrace that money is a part of success, that money is, I always hear this, money is important. Well, guess what? If I was to tell Scott, you're not important, would I be on this podcast? No. So if you told money you're not important, what are you going to do?
I still had you on. I would have still had you.
But so many people, they have the wrong relationship with finances, and they wonder why they stink in business. It's because you got to develop that business mindset. And I'll tell you this, because I ran multi-million-dollar corporations. I ran dealerships where we had millions of dollars to spend on used car inventory every month. But there's something different when it's your money and you're over here. Let me tell you, it's a mindset shift that you need to have, that you need to develop that new thinking. If not, that's why over 90% of small businesses fail.
Yeah. Which I'm curious, because with your message, I want to know what your opinion is, and especially with your story, what's your opinion about work-life balance?
Work-life balance is that it comes in seasons. What do I mean by that? There's a season to grow your business. There's a season to play. There's a season to spend with your family. Like right this past weekend, we just say we had Thanksgiving. Well, I didn't really work. My son came in, so I wanted to spend time with my son because he was in from out of town. So I knew that I rearranged some appointments. That was my family time. Every morning I wake up, I'm deliberate every morning. To me, it's God first. I invest that hour or so every morning. I try to do that when I travel. Sometimes it's 20 minutes, but my thing is God, family, and then business. But there is a time where my wife understands that, hey, Daniel has to go out there and it's a season of working, of sowing seeds. So it's like a farmer, right? The farmer has a chance to, he's not gonna reap his harvest until he sows the seeds. So understand that when in those seasons of sowing seeds, you're gonna work harder than in the seasons of reaping the rewards. And I can tell you, this past 6 months, I've been sowing a lot of seeds and I was getting tired. I think that's why I just got comfortable. I said, why bother? I'm doing okay, right? Like, what's the struggle? Doesn't matter. But then I realized, no, that's not the way you need to be. So the balance comes within knowing when you're mature enough to know when you need to sow the seeds and when you need to reap the harvest and when to spend time with your family and when to really just know that you got to kind of be more intentional about work. And I think so many times people, they blow it out of proportion. But I will say this is that A, put God first. B, we're never too busy to send our wife or our husband a text message to say, I love you, I'm thinking about you. And 3, you're never too busy to tell your kids you love them. And I think that's where most leaders, most business owners screw up, because that was me, right? I gave them a phone, gave them a car, and I never took time to just tell them I love them throughout the day. And now I'm intentional. And the word is intentional. I'm intentional on telling my kids that I love them, that I'm proud of them. And if you don't affirm your kids, guess what? Somebody else is going to affirm them for you. It's not that they're bad kids. It's just that you're not affirming them in their language. The same way there's love languages for our spouses, our kids have love languages. And you know this because we have employees. You can't lead every employee the same way. But somehow we forget that. We don't, even though we have 3 girls to stay at home, you're not going to father all 3 girls the same way. If you have 3 boys, you're not going to father all 3 boys the same way because they all have their own personality. So I think it's really being intentional in those seasons, right? It's just really being intentional. We're never too busy. We say we're busy, but think about limiting belief. Talking about that, right? I love what we're talking about. The more we say we're busy, guess what we're going to be? Busy doing nothing. Start telling yourself, I have more than enough time to do everything I want today. That's the affirmation you need to learn.
Yeah, that's a good point. What do you think most business leaders refuse to face? They ignore. They kind of bury their head in the sand. What is that the most that you see?
There's shame and guilt.
How do you mean?
Well, I think so many times we've all failed. I failed. I've been openly blunt about that. And I think so many times they don't deal with those issues, and they just, it's kind of like mold. We can paint the mold in the bathroom white, but sooner or later the mold's going to arise again. And so many leaders, we have that shame and guilt in our soul, and we never deal with it. We never deal with those past hurts of a divorce or a loved one that passed away. We don't deal with it, and we either if you think about it, I know a lot of car dogs that, bourbon, they love to drink. I mean, not, I'm just saying in general, they drink too much, right? They drink too much. And but I mean that, or they eat too much, right? They're
Yeah.
overweight, they don't take care of themselves. Or and we know, I mean, infidelity, it's just so many things that we try to fill that void with. And when you start dealing with the real issues like I did, that's when the freedom comes, and you try to, it's not just being happy, it's you find really true joy in what you're doing. And it's really just that shame and guilt, because I'll tell you, Scott, honestly, I carried a lot of shame and guilt. And the reason that's important to deal with that is because many times that next level of business is just what we tell ourselves subconsciously. I don't deserve it. How many times have you heard a grown man say that? Oh, I don't deserve it. That's good. Think
Yeah, you
about
don't
that.
hear it. Not often,
Yeah. But
but
deep
they
inside,
think it. Yeah.
deep inside, and then they self-sabotage themselves. All these things don't happen by accident. All these occurrences, our outer world is a reflection of our inner world. And I can tell you, just by some of the clients I've had, we carry shame, we carry guilt, and we carry resentment. We harbor just regrets. Man, I should have done this. I've been there. I fired somebody because I don't know it's like, man, that I shouldn't have done that. I should have. I should have saved that starfish. But I remember one day this was after about a year and a half. My wife had her first surgery, and I was already about a year and a half into business, and I was just crying. All of a sudden, I just started crying in bed. We were watching TV or something, and she goes, "What's wrong?" I was like, I just failed as a leader. Like I could have led those people better. But I allowed myself to open up to that because I needed healing from that. And so many times in an organization, as a leader, as a CEO or the president, we don't allow ourselves to heal. We try to put forth this front that everything's okay when it's not. And we got to heal inside. Everything has to heal. We can only cover it up, like I said, with any type of booze, shopping, eating, infidelity, sex, drugs, rock and roll. I mean, dude, I've been there. I mean, I had a Harley Davidson and it's in my garage. I ran 100 miles an hour for many years. And where did it get me? Not very far. It almost cost me my family. But until you can be honest with yourself, then that's when the world will start being honest with you. And as a leader of your organization, you got to be honest with the things that are going on in the inside.
Well, I've got this final question, but you may have just given the answer. So I'll ask it anyways, just in case. Is there anything I have not asked you about unlocking untapped potential that you'd like to share? If you want to end with that, that was pretty strong, brother.
No, I would say this, right? I carry this little plaque with me. It says, "I hereby give you permission. I hereby grant you permission to dream bigger than you've ever dreamed, play bigger than you've ever played. And why not Scott Joseph? Why not Daniel Gomez Inspires? Why not? Grant yourself permission to dream bigger, to have these just visions for yourself." When I came back, and this isn't an arrogant thing. I came back from Miami and I said, I got comfortable. I saw something I wanted. I'm going to get it. My wife goes, "What is it, honey?" I said, "It's a red Ferrari." That's my goal for 2022. Why? It's not so much about the red Ferrari. I'm a car guy. I love cars, right? I've always liked hot rods and, I've always liked fast things. I said, if I get that Ferrari, if I have enough money to buy that Ferrari, then guess what? I have enough money to do everything else I want to do, to bless the homeless, bless the needy, buy our dream house, pay for our kids' full tuition, buy them a new truck when he graduates. That's it. Because the way you do something is the way you do everything. So I want to encourage your audience to go out there and get a bigger vision for yourself. Start working out. Start pushing yourself to limits. Like I said, I hired a personal trainer because I knew if I could get just in my mind and start pushing myself in my workouts, it was gonna overflow into my business. Give yourself permission. What do you need to give? That's the question I want to leave you with. What do you need to give yourself permission to do today? Maybe for you, it's just to go outside and just really start being grateful for what you have. Give your permission to have an imagination, be a kid. Maybe give yourself permission just to love yourself. Release those past hurts. Just because you've made a mistake, I made a mistake, it doesn't make us a mistake. Just because you made a failure, had a failure, doesn't make us a failure. They'll be defined by those things in your life. The world is an opportunity for you to go out there and just dominate it, be a blessing to others. And when you do that, there's nothing in this life that you can't accomplish, Scott.
Awesome. I want to thank Daniel for an incredible interview. It was just very, not just dropping good bombs here and good nuggets, but pretty deep. So some good stuff here. And I'm sure business leaders in our audience get a lot out of it. I want to thank you for sharing your expertise and your knowledge. If you want more information about Daniel, his coaching, maybe you're interested in bringing him in as a speaker, I want you to visit danielgomezspeaker.com. Correct?
Yes, sir. danielgomezspeaker.com. And then our coaching website is danielgomezglobal.com. That's GLOBAL, global, danielgomezglobal.com.
Make sure, he brought up a couple times he's come to our event, and I know the times that he was up there speaking. I know a lot of people paid very close attention. David Spizak, he's been a guest here on the show. He's well respected as well, had very kind things to say about you. I also want you to check out move.crush.count.com. Make sure you subscribe to our show here. You can get into updates on all the new episodes. A lot of times we talk about things that some of these things could be some of your biggest challenges. Maybe you're feeling stuck. I can tell you if there are people feeling stuck right now, if they don't, and that goes in business or in life. If they don't get some nuggets out of this interview, I don't know what advice I could give them, because there was a lot of good stuff you dropped on them today. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. One more favor. If you like the information that we're bringing to the table with Move, Crush, Count, you like the interviews we're doing, wherever you download your podcast, can you please go in and give us a 5-star rating? It helps us. Yeah, Daniel, you've got all kinds of 5-star ratings. How do you get some? Do you ask for them? How do you get them?
I asked for them, right? You have not because you asked not. And people, when you bring once I said, like, when you bring the value, people say, okay. And I'm going to definitely leave you a 5-star, Scott, because it was an honor to be on your show. Thank you for having me. I love you, my friend. And you mean a lot to me. And I want you to know that you, last year, when I was kind of just in a pivotal point, just the fact that you invited me to your event, you changed my life. And I want you to hear that today, because you mean a lot to me. I know we don't speak every day, but you add a lot more value than you realize, my friend.
Thank you. I do appreciate that greatly. So I want to thank you again for sharing with us. Thank you all the business leaders in the audience for joining us today. And this is all about unlocking your true potential. This is the expert, Daniel Gomez, how to elevate your business and your life. I also want to thank our sponsor, J&L Marketing. They are the digital marketing agency that businesses turn to when they want to outsmart and outmarket their competition, not outspend them. So make the decision right now to move the crowd, crush the competition, and count the money. So again, I'm Scott Joseph. I'm your host. Thanks for joining us on Move, Crush, Count, and have a great day.